The air in the mobile medical unit smelled of burnt metal and antiseptic. Angel Rodriguez wiped sweat from his brow as he moved through the makeshift refugee camp established on Kepler 9 orbital station. All around him, the sounds of war echoed, distant explosions, the hum of emergency generators, and the pained moans of the wounded from both species. The Galactic Alliance's conflict with the Valdari had reached a breaking point, and this station, situated at the edge of the combat zone, had become an unlikely neutral ground for the wounded. Angel, an Earthborn battlefield doctor, navigated through corridors crowded with both human and Valdari medical staff. His white coat was stained with various shades of red and blue-green, the colors of blood from the different species he had treated today. "Dr. Martinez!" Angel called out, rushing toward the isolation unit, where his colleague was hunched over a small, motionless form. "Status?" Dr. Martinez looked up, her face drawn and exhausted. "Terminal. Valdari child, female. Approximately 8 Earth years. Multiple internal injuries from debris impact. She's lost too much blood, and we have no compatible Valdari donors on station." Angel approached the biobed and felt his heart sink. The child was small, even for a Valdari. Her skin had a grayish-blue tinge, far from the vibrant emerald shade that indicated health in her species. Her large, yellow eyes were half-closed, flickering with diminishing consciousness. The monitor above her bed displayed erratic vital signs, the Valdari equivalent of a heartbeat, becoming increasingly irregular. "Name?" Angel asked softly. "Kira," replied a Valdari doctor from across the room, his accent thick but understandable. "She is Kira, daughter of House Vath." Angel checked the medical panel. "Have we tried synthesizing Valdari blood components?" Dr. Martinez shook her head. "The molecular structure is too complex for our replicators, and there's no time to wait for transport from their homeworld." The Valdari doctor, Angel recognized him as Dr. Vex from earlier triage sessions, approached with a data pad. "Our last compatible donor was moved to the central station 2 hours ago. The child will not survive until another arrives." Angel looked at the dying child, then at the array of scars on his own arm, evidence of countless donations he'd made over the years. As an O-negative universal donor for humans, he had saved many lives with his blood. But Valdari physiology was entirely different. Their blood wasn't even hemoglobin-based. It relied on a copper-based compound that gave it its distinctive blue-green color. "What about xenotransfusion?" Angel asked suddenly. "Human to Valdari?" Dr. Martinez stared at him in disbelief. "That's never been successfully done. Their immune system would reject it immediately. It could kill her faster than the injuries." "She's dying anyway," Angel argued, rolling up his sleeve. "What if my blood has properties we haven't discovered? I've donated to non-human species before." "Different Alliance species, yes," Dr. Martinez countered. "Not Valdari. Their biology is completely alien to ours." The monitoring equipment emitted a sharp alert. Kira's equivalent of cardiac arrest was beginning. Dr. Vex moved quickly, applying emergency measures, but the child's vital signs continued to plummet. "We have nothing to lose," Angel insisted, already preparing a transfusion line. "I'm O-negative, the universal donor for humans. Maybe there's a chance." Dr. Martinez hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "I'll document this as an emergency compassionate intervention. But Angel, this is against protocol." Angel barely heard her as he inserted the needle into his arm. "Dr. Vex, how do we connect to her circulatory system?" The Valdari doctor's yellow eyes widened slightly, but he moved with practiced efficiency, guiding the transfusion tube toward a port he established in the child's arm. "I will monitor for rejection. The first sign of systemic shock, we stop." The deep red of Angel's blood began flowing through the clear tube toward the alien child. Everyone in the room watched in tense silence, expecting the worst. Dr. Martinez kept her hand hovering over the emergency cutoff switch. For 30 seconds, nothing changed. Kira's monitors continued their ominous descent. Then, something unexpected happened. Where Angel's blood entered her system, a faint green glow began to emanate under her skin. The color spread slowly up her arm, like a vine creeping along a wall. "What's happening?" Dr. Martinez whispered, her scientific curiosity overcoming her concern. Dr. Vex leaned forward, adjusting his scanner. "Impossible. Her cells are responding. The human hemoglobin is triggering some kind of cellular regeneration." The monitors stabilized, then gradually began to show improvement. The grayish tint of Kira's skin began to shift, revealing more of the natural emerald hue. Her large yellow eyes fluttered open, confused, but increasingly alert. "It's working," Angel breathed, hardly believing what he was seeing. Activity in the medical unit ground to a halt as medical staff from both species gathered to witness what should have been impossible. Whispers spread rapidly through the crowded room. "How is this possible?" Dr. Martinez asked, checking and rechecking the readings. "There's no biological mechanism that would allow for cross-species blood compatibility like this." Dr. Vex was rapidly documenting everything, his long fingers moving across his datapad with urgency. "There is no precedent for this in our medical literature. By all known science, this should have killed her instantly." Angel felt a slight dizziness as his blood continued to flow into Kira. The child's breathing had steadied, and her eyes now tracked movement around her. The wound that had been seeping blue-green blood was visibly closing, the tissue knitting together at an accelerated rate. "Enough," Dr. Martinez said firmly, disconnecting the transfusion. "You've given more than is safe. Angel." Angel nodded weakly, pressing a bandage to his arm. His attention remained fixed on the child, who was now looking directly at him. There was something in her large, alien eyes, recognition, perhaps, or something deeper. A commotion at the entrance to the medical unit drew everyone's attention. A tall Valdari female strode in, flanked by what appeared to be security personnel. Her uniform was black, with silver emblems that Angel didn't recognize. But the way the other Valdari staff straightened in her presence spoke volumes about her authority. "Matriarch Lanessa of Housevith," Dr. Vex announced quietly to Angel. "The child's mother." Lanessa moved directly to her daughter's bedside, her movements graceful despite her obvious urgency. She spoke softly in the Valdari language, her long fingers gently touching Kira's face. The child responded weakly, but with increasing strength. Then, Lanessa's yellow eyes, more intense and penetrating than her daughter's, turned to Angel. He felt a strange sensation, as if she were looking through him rather than at him. "You," she said in accented but perfect English, "you gave your blood to my daughter." It wasn't a question, but Angel nodded anyway. Yes, it was an emergency measure. Lanessa straightened to her full height, nearly a head taller than Angel. "Our medical science says this should not be possible, yet she lives. Her wounds heal." Her gaze intensified. "What are you?" "Just a doctor," Angel replied, feeling increasingly uncomfortable under her scrutiny. "A human doctor with O-negative blood. I've been a universal donor for years." Dr. Vex stepped forward, showing Lanessa the medical readings. They conversed rapidly in their native language, with Lanessa's expression shifting from disbelief to something that Angel couldn't quite interpret, a mixture of wonder and calculation. "The matriarch wishes to know if you understand what you have done," Dr. Vex translated. Though Angel suspected Lanessa understood English perfectly well. "I saved a child's life," Angel replied simply. "That's what doctors do." Lanessa's lips curved into what might have been a smile, though there was something predatory about it. "You have done far more than that, human. You have demonstrated biological compatibility that defies our understanding." Your blood carries properties that have awakened cellular regeneration in my daughter." She stepped closer to him, and Angel resisted the urge to back away. "By the ancient laws of House Veith and the genetic codes of Valdari, you have established a blood bond with my lineage." Angel looked to Dr. Martinez for support, but she appeared as confused as he felt. "I'm not familiar with Valdari customs, but I was simply performing emergency medical care. Intentions matter little in biological truths," Lanessa replied, her voice taking on a formal quality. "You will come with me now. The Genetic Council must be informed of this development." Dr. Martinez stepped forward. "He's part of the Alliance Medical Corps. You can't just take him." Lanessa's gaze cooled. "I can and I will. This human's blood has created a biological link to one of our noble houses. This goes beyond your Alliance protocols or regulations." She turned back to Angel. "You will be treated with respect befitting your new status. But you must come." "What new status?" Angel demanded, his patience wearing thin despite his fatigue. "I donated blood to save a dying child. That's all." Lanessa's expression softened slightly as she looked back at her daughter, who was now sleeping peacefully, her color improving by the minute. "You have done what our science claimed impossible. You have demonstrated genetic affinity with our species that should not exist." Her eyes returned to his, piercing in their intensity. "In our culture, such compatibility is sacred. It carries obligations." Before Angel could respond, a communication alert sounded. Dr. Martinez checked the message and frowned. "It's from Alliance Command. They're authorizing your temporary reassignment to Valdari custody for diplomatic and scientific purposes." Angel stared at her in disbelief. "They can't do that without my consent." "Apparently they can," she replied grimly. "The message cites emergency protocols from the Treaty of Proxima, Section 7, regarding biological exchanges of significance." Lanessa nodded, as if this was exactly what she had expected. "Your leaders understand the importance of this discovery. Come, Dr. Rodriguez. There is much to discuss." As Angel was escorted from the medical unit, he looked back at Kira one last time. The child was sleeping peacefully now, her skin having regained its healthy emerald hue. Whatever had happened when his blood entered her system had saved her life. But at what cost to his own freedom? Dr. Vex fell into step beside him as they followed Lanessa through the station's corridors. "I apologize for the abruptness," he said quietly. "But you must understand. What happened is revolutionary. Your blood should have killed her. Instead, it initiated a healing response we've never seen before." "So I'm being detained for a medical anomaly?" Angel asked, struggling to keep up with Lanessa's long strides. "Not detained," Dr. Vex corrected. "Honored and studied. The matriarch sees you as valuable." Something in the way he emphasized the word made Angel uneasy. "Valuable how?" Dr. Vex hesitated. "That is for the matriarch to explain. But in our culture, genetic compatibility is significant, especially for noble houses like Vath." They arrived at a secure section of the station that Angel had never entered before. The architecture changed subtly, more angular, with faint blue-green lighting that reminded him of Valdari blood. Lanessa led them into a private chamber that appeared to serve as both an office and living quarters. Once the door closed behind them, she turned to face Angel directly. "You saved my daughter's life," she said without preamble. "For that, you have my gratitude. But you have also created a situation of great political and biological significance." Angel crossed his arms. "I'd appreciate if someone would actually explain what that situation is, instead of talking around it." Lanessa's eyes narrowed slightly at his tone, but she nodded. "Very well. Direct communication is acceptable." She gestured to a seating area. "Please." Once they were seated, Lanessa continued. The Valdari face a genetic crisis. Our population is declining due to increasing infertility and genetic degradation. For centuries, we have sought solutions, including examining the possibility of incorporating beneficial genes from compatible species. "And you think I'm somehow compatible?" Angel asked incredulously. "We know you are," Dr. Vex interjected. "What happened with Kira proves it. Your blood not only didn't kill her, it accelerated her natural healing abilities. It awakened genetic potential that was dormant." Lanessa nodded. "House Veith has been at the forefront of genetic research to save our species. My daughter's recovery represents a breakthrough we have sought for generations." Her gaze intensified. "Under our oldest laws, when a non-Valdari demonstrates genetic compatibility with a noble house, they become bound to that house for reproductive purposes." The implications hit Angel like a physical blow. "You can't be serious. You expect me to, what, breed with you because my blood type saved your daughter?" "I expect you to consider the importance of what has happened," Lanessa replied calmly. "Your genetic material could save an entire species from extinction. And by our laws, the blood bond you have created gives House Veth primary claim to that genetic material." Angel stood up abruptly. "I'm a doctor, not a breeding stud. I helped your daughter because it was the right thing to do, not to become part of some alien breeding program." "Your compassion is noted," Lanessa said, rising as well. "But this goes beyond individual preferences. The Genetic Council will convene within 24 hours to review the evidence and make a determination. Until then, you will remain here as an honored guest of House Veth." "And if I refuse to cooperate?" Angel challenged. Lanessa's expression hardened. "Then you would be rejecting an opportunity to prevent the extinction of an entire species. Is that the choice a doctor, a healer, would make?" Before Angel could respond, she turned to Dr. Vex. "Ensure Dr. Rodriguez has everything he needs, and begin the preliminary genetic analysis." With that, she swept from the room, leaving Angel alone with Dr. Vex and a sinking feeling that his act of compassion had led him into a situation far more complex than he could have imagined. "She can't actually force me to do this," Angel said once Lanessa had left. "The Alliance wouldn't allow it." Dr. Vex looked uncomfortable. "The situation is complicated. Your Alliance values individual choice, yes, but they also value diplomatic relations and scientific advancement. If your genetic material could save the Valdari, the political pressure will be enormous." Angel sank back into his seat, suddenly exhausted. "I just wanted to save a child." "And you did," Dr. Vex assured him. "But in doing so, you may have saved all of us. The matriarch is not being entirely forthcoming about the severity of our genetic crisis. Without new viable genetic material, the Valdari face extinction within 7 generations. 7 generations seems like a long time to find a solution," Angel observed. Dr. Vex shook his head. "For a species with our lifespan and low reproduction rate, it is the blink of an eye, and all previous attempts at finding compatible genetic material have failed." He hesitated, then added, "Until you—" Angel ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "So, what happens now?" "Rest," Dr. Vex advised. "Recover from your blood donation. Tomorrow, we will conduct some basic tests to confirm the compatibility markers. The Genetic Council will convene, and a formal decision will be made." "And I have no say in this decision?" Dr. Vex's expression was sympathetic but firm. "You will be permitted to speak before the Council. But understand, to the Valdari, genetic preservation supersedes individual rights. It is the foundation of our society." After Dr. Vex left, Angel paced the room, trying to process everything that had happened. He attempted to contact Dr. Martinez or anyone from the Alliance Medical Corps, but the communication system in the room seemed limited to internal Valdari networks. He was effectively isolated, cut off from his colleagues and superiors. His thoughts turned to Kira, the child whose life he'd saved. There had been something profound in her eyes when she looked at him after the transfusion, a connection he couldn't explain. Hours later, exhaustion finally overcame his anxiety, and Angel fell into a troubled sleep. His dreams were filled with swirling patterns of red and blue-green blood, intertwining and forming new patterns that seemed to pulse with life. He awoke to find Lanessa standing over him, her tall figure silhouetted against the room's soft lighting. "Your presence is required," she announced without preamble. "The Genetic Council has convened earlier than expected, due to developments." Angel sat up groggily. "What developments?" "Others have been affected," she said cryptically. "Come. Now." Following Lanessa through the Valdari section of the station, Angel noticed increased activity and tension. Valdari personnel moved with greater urgency, and many stopped to stare at him as he passed. "What's going on?" he demanded, as they entered a large chamber that appeared to be a formal meeting room. A semicircle of elevated seats faced a central platform, and most were already occupied by Valdari officials in ornate attire. Lanessa guided him to the center of the room. "Your blood donation to my daughter has had unexpected consequences. The genetic compatibility you demonstrated appears to have triggered changes in those who were in proximity during the transfusion." Dr. Vex approached from one side, accompanied by several Valdari medical staff. "The empathic centers in their brains have been stimulated," he explained. "They're developing abilities that have been dormant in our species for generations." Angel looked around in confusion. "What are you talking about? What abilities?" "Telepathic communication." One of the council members spoke up. "Heightened empathic awareness. Abilities our ancestors possessed, but that have been bred out of most lineages over time." "And you think my blood caused this?" Angel asked incredulously. "Not directly," Dr. Vex clarified. "But your genetic material appears to have triggered an awakening in Valdari, who were exposed to the energy field generated during the transfusion. It's as if your blood contained a key that unlocked dormant genetic potential." Lanessa stepped forward to address the council. "Honorable members, you have reviewed the initial findings. The human Angel Rodriguez possesses genetic markers that are not merely compatible with Valdari biology. They are catalytic. His genetic material has the potential to reverse generations of degradation in our species." An older Valdari with elaborate silver markings on his face leaned forward. "The implications are profound, Matriarch. But our laws regarding genetic integration are clear. The human must willingly participate in the genetic exchange. Forced extraction is forbidden." "I am aware of the law, Elder Zahn," Lanessa replied smoothly. "Dr. Rodriguez will understand the importance of his contribution once he has been fully informed." Angel stepped forward. "I'm standing right here, and I haven't agreed to anything." The council chamber fell silent, all eyes turning to him. Angel felt a surge of defiance. "I saved Kira because she needed help, not to become involved in Valdari politics or genetics. I want to contact my superiors and return to my duties." Elder Zahn studied him thoughtfully. "Your desire is noted, human. But you must understand the significance of what has occurred. Your genetic material may represent the salvation of our species." "That doesn't give you the right to demand I breed with anyone," Angel insisted. Lanessa's expression tightened. "The genetic exchange need not be traditional. We possess technology that can extract and utilize genetic material without physical coupling." Somehow, that didn't make Angel feel any better. "That's still using my body without my full consent. Would you condemn an entire species to extinction for the sake of your individual autonomy?" asked another council member, her tone sharp. Before Angel could respond, the chamber doors burst open. A group of Valdari in military uniforms strode in, led by a severe-looking male with facial markings similar to Lanessa's. "The purest faction demands representation in these proceedings," the leader announced. Any genetic integration must be approved by all houses, not just Vith. Linessa's posture stiffened. Commander Thawes, the council did not summon representatives from the purist faction. Yet, here we are, Thawes replied coldly. His gaze shifted to Angel, and there was undisguised contempt in his yellow eyes. So this is the human whose blood pollutes your daughter's veins. Angel felt a chill at the naked hostility in Thawes' voice. The tension in the chamber had increased dramatically with the arrival of these newcomers. Elder Zahn raised a hand for silence. Commander Thawes, while your faction has the right to representation, your tone is inappropriate. The human doctor saved a child's life. At what cost? Thawes demanded. Now you speak of introducing human genetic material into our species? This is abomination. Linessa stepped forward, placing herself between Thawes and Angel. The genetic analysis shows promise for reversing the degradation that affects all houses, including yours, Commander. Would you reject a solution because of pride? I reject contamination, Thawes spat. Our ancestors would rather face extinction with dignity than survival through dilution. The council erupted into argument, with factions quickly forming. Angel found himself at the center of a political and ethical storm he barely understood. Looking around, he noticed Dr. Vex quietly observing from the sidelines, making notes on his datapad. Amid the chaos, Angel felt a light touch on his arm. He turned to find a young Valdari female in medical attire. Dr. Rodriguez, she said softly, I was present when you saved Kira. I've been changed by the experience. Many of us have. She glanced nervously at the arguing council. Not everyone fears what's happening. Some of us see hope. Before he could respond, Elder Zahn's voice cut through the clamor. Enough. This discord serves no one. The elder turned to Angel. Dr. Rodriguez, you have heard our situation. The Genetic Council will deliberate on this matter. Until a decision is reached, you will remain under House Vith's protection. Thawes stepped forward. We demand neutral custody of the human. House Vith cannot be trusted to remain objective. You dare question my honor? Linessa hissed, her hand moving to what Angel realized was some kind of ceremonial weapon at her belt. I question your judgment, Thawes replied coldly. Your daughter's life was saved, and now you would change the course of our entire species based on gratitude. Elder Zahn intervened again. The human remains with House Vith, as the blood bond was formed with their lineage. However, a representative from the purist faction may observe to ensure compliance with our laws. Thawes looked far from satisfied, but he nodded stiffly. Agreed. For now. As the council dispersed, Linessa quickly guided Angel back toward her quarters. The situation has become more complicated, she said, her voice low. Thawes and his faction will resist any genetic integration. They believe in Valdari purity above all else, even survival. And you? Angel asked. What do you believe? Linessa paused, turning to face him. For a moment, her imperious facade cracked, revealing something more vulnerable beneath. I believe in my daughter's future, she said simply. In the future of all Valdari children. If that future requires change, then we must change. Back in Linessa's quarters, Angel found himself alone with her for the first time since their initial conversation. The political machinations of the council had left him mentally exhausted, but he knew he needed to understand more about his situation. You need to explain exactly what you expect from me, he said bluntly. No diplomatic language, no cultural ambiguity. What does this genetic exchange entail? Linessa regarded him thoughtfully. Traditionally, when genetic compatibility is discovered between a Valdari noble house and an outsider, a binding is performed. This binding is both ceremonial and physical. You mean reproduction, Angel stated flatly. Yes, she acknowledged. Though, as I mentioned, Modern methods allow for artificial extraction and integration of genetic material. And if I refuse both options? Linessa's expression hardened. Then you deny us a solution to our extinction. The changes your blood has already triggered, the awakening of dormant abilities in those exposed, suggest your genetic material could reverse generations of degradation. Angel paced the room, trying to process everything. How do I know this isn't just about your house gaining an advantage? Political power through genetic superiority? A flash of anger crossed Linessa's features. You think I would use my daughter's near death to advance political ambitions? The genetic crisis affects all Valdari. House Veith has simply been at the forefront of finding solutions. And these awakened abilities, what exactly are they? Linessa seemed to consider how much to reveal. Increased empathic sensitivity, the ability to sense emotions, sometimes thoughts, enhanced healing, abilities our ancestors possessed in abundance, but that have faded over generations of genetic decline. And my blood somehow triggered their re-emergence? Your genetic material appears to contain elements that activate dormant Valdari genes, she explained. Dr. Vex believes it's related to unique properties in your immune system and neural structure. Angel sat down heavily. This is a lot to process. Linessa's expression softened slightly. I understand this is overwhelming, but time is against us. The Genetic Council will demand a decision soon, and Commander Thaz and his purists will do everything possible to prevent any integration. What about what I want? Angel asked quietly. Does that factor into your calculations at all? For a moment, Linessa seemed genuinely taken aback by the question. Then, to his surprise, she knelt before him, bringing her face level with his. I am a mother before I am a matriarch, she said, her voice uncharacteristically gentle. When I saw my daughter dying, I would have given anything to save her. You gave without being asked. That sacrifice has created a bond between us, whether you acknowledge it or not. She reached out, hesitating just short of touching his face. I do not wish to force you, Angel Rodriguez, but I ask you to consider what is at stake. Not just for me, not just for my house, but for an entire species. Angel felt a strange connection in that moment, something he couldn't explain. Whether it was the intensity in Linessa's yellow eyes or some deeper, biological recognition. He couldn't say. I need time, he said finally. And information. Real information. Not just what you want me to know. Linessa nodded slowly. That is fair. She rose gracefully. I will arrange for Dr. Vex to provide you with full access to our genetic research. And I will request that your Alliance superiors be permitted to consult with you. Thank you, Angel said, somewhat surprised by her concession. Rest now, she advised, moving toward the door. Tomorrow will bring many challenges. After she left, Angel tried again to access the communication system, and to his surprise, found it now permitted external connections. He quickly sent a message to Dr. Martinez, explaining his situation and requesting guidance. Her response came almost immediately, suggesting she had been waiting to hear from him. Alliance Command is monitoring the situation. Diplomatic channels engaged. The Valdari genetic crisis is real. Angel, whatever you decide, make sure it's your decision. We'll support you either way. Stay safe. Not exactly the cavalry he'd been hoping for. Sleep eluded him that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Kira's face as his blood flowed into her veins, watched her skin transform from deathly gray to vibrant green. He couldn't deny the profound connection he'd felt in that moment, something that transcended medical procedure or biological compatibility. Morning brought Dr. Vex, true to Linessa's word, with extensive documentation on the Valdari genetic crisis and the preliminary findings from Angel's blood analysis. The compatibility is remarkable, Dr. Vex explained, displaying complex genetic models on his datapad. Your genetic structure contains elements that appear to stabilize and activate certain dormant sequences in Valdari DNA. Angel studied the data with his medical training. These markers, they're not typical in human genetics, are they? Dr. Vex looked impressed. Very observant. No, they are not. Your genetic profile is unique. We've analyzed it against Alliance medical databases. You possess several rare mutations that appear to be the key to compatibility. So it's just me, not humans in general? Correct. Which makes you even more valuable. Dr. Vex hesitated. And explains why the purists are so concerned. One compatible human could be dismissed as an anomaly. An entire compatible species would undermine their ideology completely. Angel spent hours reviewing the research, asking questions, challenging assumptions. The more he learned, the more he understood the true gravity of the situation. The Valdari genetic degradation was accelerating. Without intervention, their fertility rates would drop below sustainable levels within 2 generations. And his blood, his unique genetic makeup, offered a potential solution. As he was finishing his review of the data, an alert sounded. Dr. Vex checked his communication device and frowned. The Genetic Council has reconvened. We're summoned immediately. When they arrived at the council chamber, Angel sensed the heightened tension immediately. The purist faction had a larger presence now, with Commander Thaz seated prominently among the council members. Lanessa stood at the center of the chamber, her posture rigid. Elder Zahn beckoned Angel forward. Dr. Rodriguez, new developments require your immediate attention. Angel moved to stand beside Lanessa, noting the strain in her expression. What's happened? Reports from medical facilities throughout Valdari space, Elder Zahn explained. The empathic awakening has spread beyond this station. Valdari, who were nowhere near your blood transfusion, are experiencing changes. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Commander Thaz rose to his feet. This contamination spreads like a disease, he declared. It must be contained before it alters the very essence of what it means to be Valdari. It is not contamination, Lanessa countered. It is restoration. These abilities were part of our ancestral heritage. A heritage we evolved beyond, Thaz shot back. These primitive traits were naturally selected out as we advanced. Dr. Vex stepped forward, datapad in hand. With respect, Commander, that is incorrect. Our research indicates these traits were lost due to genetic degradation, not evolution. What we're seeing is the restoration of genetic expression that was suppressed by cumulative genetic damage. The debate intensified, becoming increasingly technical and heated. Angel observed the factions forming, those who viewed the changes as salvation versus those who saw them as contamination. Finally, Elder Zahn raised his hand for silence. The spread of this genetic awakening presents both opportunity and concern. We must proceed with caution. He turned to Angel. Dr. Rodriguez, the Council requires your decision. Will you voluntarily participate in genetic integration with Housefith, as required by our ancient laws of blood bonding? All eyes turned to Angel. He felt the weight of an entire species' future pressing down on him. He looked at Lanessa, saw the complex emotions behind her composed exterior. Hope, fear, determination. Before I answer, Angel said carefully, I need to understand exactly what this integration entails, and I need assurances that any genetic material provided will be used ethically, with transparency, and with ongoing consent from me regarding its applications. Elder Zahn nodded approvingly. A reasonable request. Commander Thaz stood again. This is absurd. A human dictating terms to the Genetic Council? I move to invoke the Emergency Preservation Protocol. The human's genetic material is too valuable to be left to individual choice. A shocked silence fell over the chamber. Even those aligned with the purist faction seemed disturbed by the suggestion. You propose forced extraction? Lanessa's voice was deadly quiet. Against our most sacred laws. I propose survival, Thaz replied coldly. The human cannot comprehend what is at stake. Angel felt a surge of anger. I understand exactly what's at stake. I've spent all morning reviewing your research, but understanding doesn't mean surrendering my autonomy. Elder Zahn's expression was grave. The emergency preservation protocol has not been invoked in 7 generations. It would require unanimous council approval. Then let us vote, Thaz challenged. What followed was tense deliberation, with council members arguing in both Valdari and English. Angel watched as the debate shifted from his specific case to the broader ethical principles at stake, individual rights versus collective survival. To his surprise, many Valdari argued passionately against forced extraction, even those who seemed otherwise aligned with Thaz's conservative views. The concept of consent appeared deeply ingrained in Valdari genetic ethics, despite their hierarchical society. As the debate raged, Angel noticed Kira enter the chamber quietly, accompanied by a medical attendant. The child had recovered remarkably. Her skin was a vibrant emerald, her yellow eyes bright and alert. She moved to her mother's side, looking up at Angel with that same expression of profound recognition he'd seen after the transfusion. Lanessa placed a protective hand on her daughter's shoulder, her gaze challenging Thaz and his faction. The message was clear. This was not abstract policy, but the future of real children. Finally, Elder Zahn called for the vote. One by one, council members registered their positions. The emergency protocol was rejected by a significant margin. Thaz's face contorted with rage. You condemn us to genetic death out of misplaced ethical squeamishness. No, Elder Zahn replied firmly. We affirm that our survival must not come at the cost of our principles. Dr. Rodriguez will make his choice freely, as our laws require. All attention returned to Angel. In that moment, looking at Kira's hopeful face and Lanessa's guarded expression, he made his decision. I am willing to provide genetic material for research purposes, he stated clearly. With ongoing oversight from both Valdari and Alliance representatives to ensure ethical use, I need to maintain control over how my genetics are used, but I won't withhold help that could save lives. Relief washed over Lanessa's features, though she quickly composed herself. Elder Zahn nodded solemnly. A wise and compassionate decision. The council accepts your terms. Thaz and his supporters stormed from the chamber, but Angel barely noticed their departure. Kira had approached him, reaching out a small green hand. When he took it, he felt a strange, tingling sensation, almost like a current passing between them. She wishes to thank you, Lanessa explained softly. In our way. The sensation intensified, and Angel experienced a flood of emotions that weren't his own. Gratitude, curiosity, and something like recognition. It lasted only moments before Kira withdrew her hand, smiling shyly. What was that? Angel asked, stunned. Empathic communication, Lanessa explained. A ability once common among our people, now rare. Kira's talent has strengthened since your transfusion. The council session concluded with the establishment of a joint Valdari Alliance Oversight Committee for the genetic research. Angel would provide samples voluntarily, while maintaining the right to approve or reject specific applications of his genetic material. As they left the chamber, Lanessa walked beside him in silence. It wasn't until they were alone in a corridor that she spoke. You could have refused, she said quietly. Why didn't you? Angel considered the question. Because it was the right thing to do. Because I became a doctor to save lives. He paused. And because when Kira touched me just now, I felt connected. Like there's something bigger happening here than just biology. Lanessa studied him with newfound respect. Perhaps there is. After a moment, she added, the traditional blood bond ceremony typically includes more than just genetic donation. It symbolizes the joining of bloodlines through union. Angel raised an eyebrow. Are you still expecting that? To his surprise, Lanessa looked almost uncomfortable. I am not. The genetic samples will suffice for our research. The ceremonial aspects are optional. Good to know, Angel replied, feeling strangely disappointed by her quick dismissal. The next few days fell into a routine. Angel provided blood and tissue samples under Dr. Vex's supervision. Alliance representatives arrived to ensure protocols were followed. The genetic research progressed rapidly, with promising early results. Throughout it all, Angel found himself spending increasing time with Kira, who seemed fascinated by him. The empathic connection they shared grew stronger, and he began to learn rudimentary Valdari through their interactions. He also saw more of Lanessa, though their conversations remained largely formal and focused on the research. Yet he occasionally caught her watching him with an expression he couldn't quite interpret. Something beyond scientific interest or political calculation. A week after the council's decision, Angel was awakened by urgent alarms. Security personnel rushed through the corridors, and he heard the distant sound of weapons fire. Lanessa burst into his quarters, her usual composure shattered. You must come with me now. Thaz and his faction have staged an uprising. They're attempting to seize control of the research facility. And you. Angel grabbed his medical kit by reflex. What about Kira? She's secure, Lanessa assured him, leading him through back corridors. But Thaz is determined to either control your genetic material or destroy it entirely. He cannot accept change, even to save our species. They reached a secure area where Dr. Vex and several loyal Valdari were gathered around communication equipment. The purists have taken the main laboratory, Dr. Vex reported grimly. They're demanding the human be surrendered to them. For what purpose? Angel asked, though he feared he knew the answer. Forced extraction followed by termination, Dr. Vex replied bluntly. They believe your influence must be completely contained. Lanessa's expression hardened. They will not touch him. The irony wasn't lost on Angel. The same woman who had initially demanded his genetic material was now his fiercest protector. Alliance forces have been notified, one of the Valdari officers reported. But they're respecting Valdari sovereignty and waiting for formal request for intervention. Then we handle this ourselves, Lanessa declared. She turned to Angel. I know you're a healer, not a warrior, but I need to know if you will stand with us. Angel thought of Kira, of the Valdari medical staff who had been changed by his blood, of the future that hung in the balance. I'll help however I can, he said firmly. But my priority is minimizing casualties on all sides. The conflict that followed was chaotic and confusing. Thaz's forces attempted to breach their position multiple times, but were repelled by Lanessa's loyal guards. Angel found himself treating wounded from both factions, maintaining his oath as a doctor despite the politics. The turning point came unexpectedly, as Thaz himself led a major assault on their position. Something extraordinary happened. The Valdari who had experienced the empathic awakening, doctors, researchers, even some security personnel, formed a kind of psychic barrier. Their combined empathic abilities created a field that disoriented and confused the attackers. Angel watched in amazement as weapons dropped from nerveless fingers, as hardened warriors sank to their knees, overwhelmed by the empathic assault. What's happening? He asked Dr. Vex, who looked equally stunned. The awakened ones, the doctor replied in awe. They're using their abilities in concert. This is unprecedented. Thaz alone seemed able to resist, pushing forward through the empathic field with sheer will. He reached their position, weapon raised, only to find Lanessa waiting, ceremonial blade in hand. Stand down, Commander, she ordered. This conflict is over. It ends when the contamination ends, Thaz snarled, lunging at her. What followed was a swift, brutal combat that demonstrated Lanessa was far more than a political leader. Her movements were precise and deadly, her blade flashing in the emergency lighting. Yet, even as she fought, Angel could see she was trying to subdue rather than kill her opponent. Thaz had no such reservations. His attacks grew increasingly desperate and vicious. When he realized he couldn't overcome Lanessa directly, he suddenly changed tactics, turning toward Angel with murderous intent. "If the source is eliminated, the corruption ends," he shouted, charging forward. Angel braced himself, but before Thaz could reach him, Lanessa intercepted the attack. In the struggle that followed, her blade pierced Thaz's side, not a fatal wound, but enough to take him out of the fight. As Thaz's supporters saw their leader fall, their resistance crumbled. Within hours, the uprising was contained. Alliance forces finally intervened to help secure the station and prevent further violence. In the aftermath, Angel found himself treating Thaz's wound under heavy guard. The commander watched him with undisguised hatred. "You should let me die," Thaz said bitterly. "It would be kinder than watching my species become something unrecognizable." Angel continued his work methodically. "Change doesn't mean destruction. Sometimes it means evolution." "Easy for you to say, human. It's not your heritage being diluted." Angel paused, looking directly at Thaz. "My blood saved Kira. It's helping your people recover abilities they lost. How is restoration the same as dilution?" Thaz had no answer, turning his face away in silent rejection. When Angel finally returned to Lanessa's quarters, exhausted from treating the wounded, he found her waiting. She had changed from her battle attire into simpler clothing, and for the first time, he saw her not as the imperious matriarch, but simply as a woman, albeit an alien one, who had fought to protect her child and her people. "You're injured," he noted, seeing the discoloration on her arm where Thaz had struck her. "It's nothing," she dismissed. "You should rest. You've done more than enough." Instead, Angel opened his medical kit. "Let me see it. Doctor's orders." To his surprise, she complied, extending her arm. As he treated the injury, they sat in companionable silence. "Thank you," she said finally. "Not just for this," she nodded at her arm, "but for everything. My daughter lives because of you. Our future as a species may exist because of you." "I just did what any doctor would do," Angel replied. Lanessa's lips curved in a small smile. "No. Not any doctor would have given blood to an alien child against all medical protocols. Not any human would have stood with us against Thaz." She hesitated, then added softly, "You are exceptional, Angel Rodriguez." Something in her tone made him look up, meeting her yellow eyes. The intensity he found there wasn't political or scientific. It was personal. "The blood bond," she said carefully, "is more than just genetics. In our oldest traditions, it represents a union of souls as well as bodies. I did not wish to pressure you with this aspect, given everything else at stake." Angel set aside his medical instruments, suddenly very aware of her proximity. "And now I find myself hoping you might consider the full meaning of the bond." Her voice had taken on a vulnerable quality he'd never heard from her before, not out of obligation, but out of choice. The realization of what she was suggesting hit Angel with unexpected force. This powerful alien woman, who had initially demanded his genetic material as a matter of right, was now asking for something much more personal. And, to his surprise, he wasn't repelled by the idea. "I think," he said slowly, "that would require us to know each other better. Beyond politics and genetics." Lanessa nodded, relief evident in her expression. "I would like that." In the months that followed, the Valdari genetic research progressed rapidly. Angel's unique genetic markers were isolated and synthesized, allowing for widespread treatment without requiring continuous donations from him. The empathic awakening spread throughout Valdari society, bringing with it both challenges and renewed hope. Angel remained on Veldari Prime, officially serving as an Alliance medical liaison, but in reality, becoming deeply integrated into Veldari society. He learned their language, studied their customs, and gradually came to understand their complex social structures. His relationship with Linessa evolved slowly, moving from formal allies to friends to something deeper. Their biological differences presented challenges, but those same differences created a unique connection between them, a complementary balance that neither had experienced before. Kira became the bridge between them, her innocent acceptance of Angel as part of their family smoothing over cultural misunderstandings and political complications. Through her, Angel came to love Veldari culture, while Linessa gained appreciation for human perspectives. A year after the fateful blood transfusion, on Kira's birthday celebration, Angel and Linessa formalized their union in a traditional Veldari blood bond ceremony. Representatives from both species attended, marking it as a historic moment in interspecies relations. Months later, using advanced genetic technology and careful medical supervision, their daughter Arya was born, the first human Veldari child in history. Her skin was a lighter green than pure Veldari, her eyes amber rather than yellow. But she was beautiful and, more importantly, healthy. On Arya's first birthday, Angel stood with Linessa at the window of their home on Veldari Prime, watching the twin suns set over the horizon. The cityscape below them reflected both Veldari tradition and human influence, a visual representation of the integration that was transforming both societies. "Did you ever imagine this?" Angel asked, watching Arya play on the floor nearby. "When you first demanded I give you my genetics?" Linessa laughed softly. "I imagined a solution to our genetic crisis. I never imagined this." She gestured to their home, their child, the life they'd built together. Arya looked up at the sound of her mother's voice, her amber eyes bright with intelligence beyond her years. "Mama! Papa!" she called, using both languages effortlessly. As Angel lifted his daughter into his arms, feeling her small hand against his face and the gentle touch of her developing empathic abilities, he reflected on the extraordinary chain of events that had led to this moment. One desperate act of compassion, giving blood to save a dying alien child, had changed the course of two species. What had begun as a demand for breeding had transformed into something far more profound, a genuine bond that transcended biology and created a bridge between worlds. Linessa joined them, her hand finding Angel's in a gesture that had become natural despite their anatomical differences. "The Genetic Council reports that fertility rates have increased 30% across all houses," she told him. "The treatments derived from your genetic material are working better than we hoped." "And the opposition?" Angel asked, thinking of Thaz and his purists. "Diminishing daily," Linessa replied with satisfaction. "It's difficult to argue against results, and the return of empathic abilities has changed many minds. When you can feel the hope and joy of others, old prejudices become harder to maintain." Arya reached out, touching both her parents' faces simultaneously. Through the empathic connection they all now shared, Angel felt her innocent happiness, her complete acceptance of her mixed heritage. In her mind, there was no contradiction in being both human and Veldari. It was simply who she was. As the last light of the twin suns faded from the sky, Angel made a silent promise to his daughter. The path that had brought them here might have begun with conflict and coercion, but her future would be built on choice and compassion. She would be a living bridge between two worlds that once thought themselves incompatible, proof that differences could become strengths rather than divisions. "What are you thinking?" Linessa asked, sensing his contemplative mood through their empathic bond. Angel smiled, watching the first stars appear in the alien sky. "I'm thinking that sometimes the greatest discoveries happen when we're just trying to do the right thing." Linessa nodded, understanding perfectly. One act of compassion can change everything. As they stood together, this unlikely family created from a desperate act of medical intervention. Angel knew she was right. His choice to give blood to save a dying child had opened a door between species that could never be closed again. And beyond that door lay a future brighter than either world could have achieved alone.